People always think they understand the woods, that if you've got a map, a good pair of boots, and a full battery, you'll be fine. But once you leave the trail, really leave it, you'll find there are places that don't want to be known. And if you keep going, sometimes they let you in anyway. In the fall of 2017, 4 of us decided to go on a backwoods camping trip in Kentucky, deep in Clay County. It wasn't part of the official Daniel Boone National Forest, it was an unmarked area north of Redbird. No cell service, no rangers, no groomed trails, just acres of dense pine, rocky hollows, and old stories that no one tells unless you're from there. We weren't. It was me, Josh, my girlfriend Liv, and 2 of our college friends, Marcus and Tori. We were all 24, used to short hikes and national park camping, but nothing like this. We heard about the spot through a guy on a Reddit hiking forum. He wouldn't say much except it's the most peaceful place you'll ever find. Just stay near the creek and don't go past the second ridge. That should have been a red flag, but we figured it was a locals only thing, territorial, secret fishing spots, that kind of vibe. We left our cars at a pull-off just outside of Manchester and hiked with packs. The forest was thick, dense trees that seemed older than the land around them. The air was still, too still. After 2 hours, we found the creek he mentioned. Cold, fast moving water with a steep rock wall on one side and a mossy flat on the other. It was beautiful, yeah, but even then, something felt off. Like we weren't alone, even though we hadn't seen a single person since the gravel road. We set up camp, built a fire, cracked open beers and talked under the stars. Then, around 9:40 PM, we heard it. Whistling. Just 3 notes, long, low, rising. It came from the trees across the creek. We all froze. Marcus chuckled nervously. Someone out there? We called out. No answer. Then a few seconds later, from our left, the same 3 notes. Closer. Liv whispered, "Is that a bird?" It wasn't. There was a pause, a weird, heavy pause, like the whole forest held its breath. Then, to our right, the same whistle. That triangle of sound, one across the creek, one left, one right, surrounded us. I stood up and yelled, "Hey, we're just camping, we don't want trouble." Nothing, just wind in the trees. We didn't sleep well. In the morning, Liv and Tori wanted to leave. Marcus said we were fine, and I was on the fence. Around noon, we saw our first person, an old man in a busted truck, slowly driving the gravel trail near where we parked. He stopped and rolled down the window. "You kids in the woods?" We nodded. He shook his head. "Ain't wise, not this far back." "Why?" I asked. "Something we should know." He stared at us for a long time, then said, "You don't talk, they whistle. If you hear it again, don't whistle back." And he drove off. We decided to stay one more night, just to prove we weren't spooked. Dumbest decision of my life. That night, it started again, whistling. Same pattern, same triangle. Only this time, it moved, circled us, slowly. We sat frozen around the fire. The sound would vanish, then return from a new direction. Always 3 notes, always the same tone. Liv said her name, just once, and the whistling stopped. That silence was worse than the sound. Then, on the edge of the tree line, we saw someone. Only for a second, just a pale face, no shirt, just standing there, watching. Then it was gone. Tori started crying, and Marcus whispered, "We're leaving at dawn." No one argued. The next morning, the trail we took in wasn't there. I'm not kidding. The orange markers we tied to branches, gone. The downed birch tree we stepped over, not there anymore. It's like the forest had moved. We followed the creek downstream, hoping it would lead back to the road. It should have. Instead, it narrowed, turned rocky, and led us to a dead hollow, a wide basin of grey trees and rotten stumps. At the centre was a structure. Maybe once a cabin, now just a foundation of stones, and carved into one of the stones, 3 vertical slashes. That night, we tried not to light a fire. It didn't matter. The whistling came anyway, from every direction. Fast now, urgent, mocking. Tori broke. She screamed into the dark, "What do you want?" A moment later, we heard a whistle. Her exact scream mimicked in whistling form. It was the most wrong sound I've ever heard, like someone took her voice and twisted it through a flute made of bone. We ran. We ran until we couldn't anymore. Found a clearing with an old hunting blind and crashed there. At sunrise, we heard a motor, the sound of a quad. A local hunter spotted us and drove us out. He didn't ask what happened. All he said was, "Y'all lucky. Ain't many come out once they start whistling." Liv still won't talk about it. She won't go near the woods anymore. Tori moved back to New Jersey. Marcus, he went back a year later, alone. He never came back. I've been hiking alone for over a decade, from Colorado to Catskills, and nothing ever made me question that decision until West Virginia, specifically Monongahela National Forest near a place called Spruce Knob. It's remote, rugged and breathtaking, but just off the main trails are vast stretches of woodland that even rangers admit they haven't mapped completely. Old coal routes, they said, private logging land, just don't go too far off. I wish I listened. It was early October 2021. I'd taken time off work and wanted a few days in nature before winter. The plan was simple: 2 nights on a loop trail near Seneca Creek, solo camping with GPS, topographical maps and an offline trail app. I parked to the trailhead and hiked around 7 miles in the first day. The air was crisp, leaves just starting to change. I passed one couple heading out and I didn't see another soul the rest of the day. Around 4 PM, I found a perfect camp spot near the water. I set up my tent, cooked dinner and read until nightfall. That night was calm, no weird noises, no bad vibes. That came later. Around 11 AM the next morning, I broke camp and continued down the loop. I was supposed to head east, but somewhere along the way, I missed the marker. My GPS showed me about half a mile off course, but I wasn't worried. I could see I was close to where I needed to be. Then, I reached a crossroad. Not on the map, not on GPS, just a narrow path heading north, flanked by 2 upright stones that looked deliberate, carved, weathered. I stopped. The air felt different there, cooler, stiller, like sound didn't carry right. The forest was absolutely silent. I don't know why I did it, curiosity, maybe, or the way the path seemed inviting. So I turned onto the trail and walked north. After 20 minutes, the woods began to thin. Then I saw it. A town. Tiny, maybe a dozen buildings, all wooden and sagging with age. A church with a broken steeple, a general store with boarded windows, a large house at the far end with a wraparound porch and lanterns hung from its beams. There were no cars, no wires, no paved roads. It looked like something out of the 1800s. But here's the thing, it didn't look abandoned. There were curtains in the windows, smoke coming from one of the chimneys, a stack of chopped wood by the general store. Then I saw a man, middle-aged, wearing faded denim and a flannel, standing perfectly still near the porch of the church. He stared at me, then turned and walked inside. I called out, "Hey, is this private land?" No answer. Just the wind and the creaking boards. I walked deeper into town, cautiously. The buildings were weathered, but solid. I passed the house and saw someone standing inside. A woman, middle-aged, pale, just staring through the window. She didn't wave, didn't move. I knocked on the door of the store. No answer. I looked around again. Now there were 4 people, each standing near different buildings, all watching, non-moving. Then I noticed the identical table set outside several homes, each with 2 chairs, each with a plate, a fork and a glass, all empty but clean, like they were waiting for something or someone. I left quickly. The path I took in, it wasn't there anymore. I retraced my steps and ended up back at the same crossroad. I walked the perimeter of the town twice. Every way I turned, the woods just curved back towards the buildings. I tried GPS, dead. Compass, spinning. Phone, no signal, of course. But my battery dropped from 62% to 10 in minutes. I stayed at the edge of the town as the sun began to fade, debating whether to sleep in the woods. Then a bell rang from the church, low and metallic, just once. Every resident of the town turned to face the sound, and then, together, they turned to face me. I ran, through the woods, over rocks. I scraped my hands and knees and I ran until my lungs burned. I found a dry hollow under a pine grove and huddled there with my knife in my hand. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m, I heard footsteps, crunching leaves, moving slowly, then stopping. Then the faint sound of someone breathing. I held my breath. After a while, it moved on. At sunrise, I made one more push back to the town. It was empty. I found an old journal inside the large house. Its pages were brittle but legible. The last entry was dated 1901. We remain as 12. We prepare the table for 13. The traveller who strays becomes the guest becomes the kept. There were pages before that, but they'd been torn out. I left it on the floor and got out of there. This time, the trail was back. When I got back to my car, a ranger was there, said he was checking a fire report. I asked him about the town, described what I'd seen. He went quiet, then said, "You must have been near Old Wheatley, logging town, burned down in 1912. Ain't nothing there now but stone and ash." I showed him the photo I took of the porch table. It was gone, replaced by a black screen. I tried to go back 2 months later. Same trailhead, same GPS route. The path, gone. No stones, no crossroad, just empty woods. But sometimes, when I hike alone now, I see something out of place. A faint column of smoke in the distance, a shadow in the trees, and once, a perfectly set table for 2. I met Sarah on the Appalachian Trail, spring of 2019. She was through hiking southbound, and I was doing a short, solo stretch through North Carolina. We ran into each other near Mac's Patch, shared a fire, swapped stories, and decided to keep hiking together for a while. By day 3, I knew I didn't want to hike without her again. We moved in together that fall, small place in Asheville, and spent the next few years planning weekend hikes and trail runs through the Smokies and Pisgah. She was fearless, loved the solitude. The deeper we were in, the happier she was. But something happened in 2023 that neither of us could explain. Something that took her from me, or maybe brought something back in her place. It was supposed to be simple. 2 nights in the Joyce Kilmer Slick Rock Wilderness, off trail, through an old ridgeline Sarah had been wanting to bushwhack for a while. Remote, dense, beautiful. We set up camp the first night near an old fire ring off a faint animal trail. No one around for miles, just us, the trees, and the wind moving through like it had a purpose. That night, I woke up to Sarah sitting bolt upright in the tent. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "What?" "Someone's calling for help." I sat up and listened. Silence. She unzipped the tent and stepped out into the dark. I grabbed my flashlight and followed. And then, we both heard it. A voice. Distant, male, weak. "Help! Help me!" It came from the trees west of us, downhill, deep. Sarah looked at me. "We can't ignore that." But something in me said, we should. Still, she started walking. We followed the voice for maybe 10 minutes, careful with each step. Then it stopped. Dead silence. We waited. A few minutes later, the voice came again. Only this time, it sounded closer than it should have been, and wrong. Like someone pretending to be in pain. "Please, help me." Only now, it sounded familiar, almost like Sarah's own voice. That's when we both stopped. "Did that sound like me?" she asked, almost laughing, but it wasn't funny. "Let's go back," I said. We turned around, but the trail we followed, gone. We searched for any sign of our original path. Nothing. Every tree looked the same, the moss, the bark, the slope. It was like the forest had shifted. Then we heard it again. "Sarah." Soft, from behind a tree, but not through the tree. It sounded inside them, as if the bark itself was speaking. Then another voice, mine, said, "This way." Only I hadn't said anything. That's when we started running. And after what felt like an hour, we stumbled into a small clearing, a circle of low stumps and dry pine needles. In the centre was a pile of stones with a worn wooden carving on top. It looked like a crude human face with a wide hollow mouth. Sarah stared at it. She whispered, "That's a law marker." "A what?" "I read about them. Appalachian folklore, the whistlers, the mimics, things that lure hikers with voices, sometimes their own." She shivered. I stepped towards her, but she flinched like I wasn't real. We built a fire and huddled by it, barely sleeping. In the early hours, she said she had to pee and walked into the tree line. She didn't come back. I called for her, searched, panicked. Finally, just after dawn, I saw her standing by the clearing. But something was off. She was still. Too still. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. I approached slowly. "Sarah? Sarah?" She smiled. Not her smile. Too wide, too flat. Then she said, "You came back." But in my voice. I screamed, fell backwards and ran. Eventually I made it to the ridge with a faint trail and followed it for hours until I reached a gravel service road. A hunter gave me a lift to the ranger station. They found Sarah a day later, curled up near our original campsite, dehydrated, shaken, but alive. She didn't remember anything past the voice in the trees. It's been 6 months. Sarah's different. She's distant, wakes up at night whispering to someone, talks less, sometimes just stands by the window, listening. And sometimes I hear her voice whisper my name from the backyard, even when she's asleep in bed. Last week, I found her in the woods behind our house. She was standing still, too still, smiling. When I asked her what she was doing, she just said, "Waiting for the real you to come back."